Hi, everyone, and today we're discussing one of the biggest scandals that has been in beauty as of late. Now, I find it being called a scandal is a little bit oversimplifying and kind of reduces the sort of gravity around it, but I also understand kind of the verbiage of it all. Before we really get into it, links, sources, ways to support the channel all down below, including Patreon, YouTube memberships, the whole nine, as well as an email to suggest content and any other links to things like who did my profile picture and all that kind of fun stuff. I want to thank all of my current members and patrons. Names on the screen. We're going to try to get into it in sort of decent time for once, maybe. Because then maybe I don't need to talk for 45 minutes like I do every single time that I'm here. So, 3 parts of the video today. We're talking about the Youthforia Shade 600 controversy and everything that surrounds it. So 3 parts. We have the Youthforia Foundation initial launch. Part 2, we're going to have Shade 600 and color theory discourse. And part 3, other shady business practices, hypothetically, allegedly in Minecraft. Let's get right into it. Part 1, the Youthforia Foundation initial launch. In September of last year, 2023, Youthforia, the brand that initially gained virality from having a pH-changing blush oil that kind of turns into the same weird pink that every other pH-changing product does, because in reality, people do not have high variability between pHs in the skin, went viral from a lot of influencers talking about it. It was a small Asian-owned brand at the time. It's still a small brand now, still owned by the same person. But I digress. Breaking news, I think. I don't know if anyone else has found this yet, but when I was looking for the pH oil on Ulta to show you the example, I was on Ulta, I believe, yesterday checking, and in the last 24 to 48 hours, Youthforia has been removed from the Ulta website, at least for me. And that is so wild. This is really bubbling into something that, like, I don't know what's going to happen next. In September of 2023, Youthforia released their Skintint in 15 shades, where most of the shades leaned very light. Not to mention, from the jump, the formulation of the deep shades was not necessarily presented as honestly as it could have been.
This is the darkest shade. It's the alleged shade here in the room with us. This keeps happening because tone inclusivity is not something these beauty companies are worried about. They do not care. The next foundation we're trying is the Youthforia Date Night Foundation that is literally going viral on TikTok, and apparently you can sleep in it. Let's see if it's tone inclusive. I'm using the darkest shade of $4.95, and this is what this product looks like online. But somehow these are the same color, right? One pump. This is the darkest shade of the Youthforia Date Night Foundation. I feel like I've been lied to so bad. This is what this shade looks like online, and this is what this shade looks like on the model. As we can see here, somebody is lying. There is no way these are the same 2 shades. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Do we see each other? Rubbish. In 2023, for you to be lying about your shades online and this to be your darkest shade, maybe we should take a step back. Let's really, as a whole, as a company, as a beauty industry in itself, sit down and be like, hey, I have some questions. Like, yeah, you could sleep in this foundation, Pookie, but it's not tone inclusive. This to be your darkest shade in 2023.
And I'll sort of explain why they would have even done that in the first place, in my opinion, by taking us on a little trip through makeup history. Or makeup content history, rather. One of the most famous shade rage controversies to happen on social media was back in 2018 when Tarte tried to release a Shape Tape foundation to match the very popular Shape Tape concealer. And it was interesting because the foundation had absolutely horrific shade range, even despite the fact that the concealers had a pretty decent range. Anyone who was in beauty at the time remembers this very infamous swatch photo, the one that shocked the masses. On a video that has now amassed a whopping 5.4 million views, beauty YouTubers Alyssa Ashley and Jackie Aina review the foundation and talk about the lack of dark shades. But there was also the issues of undertones as well as the way that they named the shades. Now, Alyssa Ashley seems to have removed herself from YouTube content as a whole, has deleted almost all of the videos on her channel, besides some that I can assume, again, would be a contractual obligation situation. Jackie Aina's video is still up, and I will play the clip right now where they look at the tones and read the shade names.
Deep Honey and Rich Sandwork. Okay, I think I may have some luck if I keep the darker color like around the perimeter.
That is
And
so
then-
orange. That is orange.
So this is my liquid bronzer. What the heck?
Oh my god.
No, this is not.
These are orange.
I did not serve my country for this buffoonery. Don't appreciate the blatant erasure of like a whole spectrum of people. Like, it doesn't even look like they tried.
They didn't. They really didn't. If I were to read the shade names out loud right now, you guys would laugh.
Why don't we do that? Okay.
So what do we have?
Fair sand, fair neutral, fair light neutral, light sand, light medium neutral, light medium honey, medium sand, medium neutral, medium tan honey, deep honey, rich sand, mahogany. Always somebody's mahogany. Espresso. When you have something called mahogany, you already are telling the consumer that we ain't got nothing else for you, boo.
That's like the universal, okay, like here, mahogany. For the black.
Right.
Since then, along with the launch of the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Longwear Foundation in the initial Fenty 40, with the first launch of the foundation being with the brand itself opening, people have really looked at other foundation ranges with a side eye. Because clearly, it's possible to come with the dark shades right away. Fenty has also since expanded the shade range to what is now referred to as the Fenty 50. And I remember Nima Tang reviewing another Fenty product, which was the Fenty Beauty Matchstick in Caviar. For those of you who don't know, I don't have the contour one, but I do actually have... The Fenty Matchsticks are like these little like hexagon thingies. Mine's a highlighter one. Isn't that fun? But yeah, so these are the little stick products, and they actually stick together if you have more than one, but I only have this one.
Told you guys about with the powder bronzer. I'm gonna use Caviar, which is this shade, and that's what I'm gonna use to... It's a very subtle contour on me, but it is a contour and we will take it, okay? There's not many products on the market at all whatsoever, so we're gonna give Fenty their things for this, and they definitely deserve it. I really am excited to keep playing with it and keep using it. So this is Fenty 498, and then this is the Pure Love Your Selfie right here. So they definitely took into consideration 498, which I am very happy about because I don't feel like that was the case for the bronzers that launched. Look. When they first came out with the contour sticks, I do know that it wasn't really like up to par for me particularly, but I definitely do think that they...
While the Fenty Pro Filter Longwear Foundation, along with other brands kind of following suit, had created a expectation for inclusive shade ranges, which many brands have somewhat matched up to over time, it still shows how disingenuous the brands were and how it was really for image when the blushes, when the contour products, when the powders and everything were not matching with the required ranges for the foundations. So for example, when I say Nima Tang reviewed Fenty Beauty Contour and Shade Caviar, I'll put a picture on screen on what it looks like. It was, she said, the first product that she would actually be able to contour with. And even then, it was still a soft contour. So imagine you have, let's say, like the shade, I think Fenty goes to 500. So let's say you're like shade 500. Or whatever the darkest shade is, 495 or whatever it was. That's cool and everything, but if you can't use a bronzer, you can't use a blush, or anything still ashy or not dark enough, then there's pieces missing to the puzzle, right? When we're specifically talking about like other products as well as foundations and concealers, and kind of Nima Tang kind of relaxing from making YouTube content as well, she says actually in a TikTok that I can insert now, a lot of it was because of just being like essentially abused in comment sections and stuff because of the way that people were kind of actively gaslighting her about the ranges in the first place. And the other thing is, if you look on the Jackie Aina video, the comments are also turned off, which is something that Jackie Aina does not normally do. So this is something that it's like, even though these are now considered kind of like iconic videos, iconic content, there's still horrific treatment around them a lot of the time because of things like colorism and racism. And I'll put in Nima Tang's video because a lot of people were demanding that she talk about the Youthforia Foundation. And we'll get more into like what that exactly pertains, but I just kind of want to add this sentiment in as well.
Okay, this is actually extremely unacceptable. First of all, I have been doing this type of content for well over 6 years. I did it without any guidance, without any therapy, first of all, and it burnt me out in 2019, number one. Number two, this type of content, like I've said this before and I've said it again, it's not easy. It's actually emotionally draining and emotionally taxing. And if you don't have proper things put in place, you can really truly burn out from this type of content. So if you guys want to see the real change in the beauty industry, make sure you guys are checking on your Black content creators that are actually trying to change the beauty industry. Instead of doing this, demanding their time, demanding their attention, why don't you go and create your own video? Or better yet, let's just check in on our Black creators that are trying to change this industry every single video at a time, okay? Thanks.
With the kind of like shift from YouTube beauty content to TikTok beauty content, we also have someone kind of sort of picking up the reins of Nima Tang's series named Gloria. Now, I'm 95% sure it's pronounced Gloria. I'll put her TikTok up here. She gained a following doing the darkest shade of XYZ series. Actually, I think every foundation I own, she's done one. Because I have the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. The lid doesn't stick on. And then I also have the Fenty Skintint and the House Labs Foundation as well. Youthforia sent Gloria the initial foundation launch in PR for her to review. And for that, they sent her the darkest shade, which online and on the model looked completely different than the bottle and the swatch on her. And she even went so far as to buy her own after people were saying that that wasn't possible, and the shade was still the same. You see how we're coming from full circle? She showed that Youthforia was being dishonest about the foundation range before this new controversy even came into play, and showed the swatches versus the online images. And in that I mean that the deepness and the undertone were not the same as kind of what was advertised in the product images online. This is also kind of why it's pretty hard to shade match online, but that even in itself is like, oh, a difference in tone or a difference in, you know, like it looks a bit too pink or something like that. This is just like a completely different foundation altogether. After the controversy, Youthforia claimed that they were going to go back to the lab and expand the shades, which is still strange because I feel like you should have also fixed the one that you messed up, but I digress. And with that, that gets us to part 2. So part 2, Shade 600 and Color Theory Discourse. Youthforia came back with added shades to the Date Night Skintint, that's the name of it. I don't know why I didn't say it before. There were some new ground covered with shades 540, 570, and 590, while it ended at 495 before. Still bounce around in an odd way, and shades 540, 570, 590 are there, but the same 495 seems to still be present, which is the one that Gloria had issues with initially. Now, I don't know if maybe they've changed it in the bottles. I guess I would have to see if someone ordered it or something like that. Maybe in the comments, if you do have Youthforia shade 495, is it darker than it was when Youthforia initially launched it? Or is it still like the misleadingly light shade? But regardless, I feel like they should have changed the product images and just match it to the other one to at least be honest, especially if you're already expanding. Then there was shade 600, which Gloria reviewed in the following viral TikTok.
Side of my face is the black face paint or the Youthforia foundation. You can't tell. You know why? Tar in a bottle. This is jet black face paint, and this is the darkest shade of the Youthforia Date Night foundation. This is black face paint. This is the darkest shade of the Youthforia foundation. A few months ago, I tried the darkest shade of the Youthforia foundation. This is what it looked like on me. I'm gonna apply some of the foundation on this side of my face so you guys can see. Let's just go ahead and try to blend this out, you guys. Enough. Who's that color? I'm gonna wipe this off and let me put the paint all over my face. I'm literally just going in with the face paint. We're gonna do some painting, and let me just go ahead and blend it out with a brush. This is the darkest shade of the Youthforia foundation. This is black face paint. Sometimes it's okay to say, hey, maybe my brand is not made for complexion. I'm gonna squeeze a pump of this on my forehead just right out the bottom so you guys can see that I'm literally not joking. We're gonna do a big blend of this, you guys. When we say that we want you guys to make shades for us, we don't mean to go to the lab and ask for minstrel show black. What we mean is to take the browns that you have made, create undertones, and do what you need to do in the lab so it's a darker shade of black. This is the darkest shade, shade 600, and as you guys can see in the bottle, literally jet black. The shade right next to it is shade 590. This is what it looks like in the bottle. Here is shade 600. You guys, there could be like 10 more shades in between these two shades. In addition to that, when we go to the actual website and we look at the swatch, not only is the swatch online literally jet black, there's literally only 4 or 5 shades for people that actually have dark complexions. Not really for black people, if we're being honest. Not only in 2024 is this so disgusting and disrespectful, but this needs to be pulled off the shelves.
This shade has been compared to, some have said, minstrel show black or minstrel show face paint. Now, for those of you who are maybe uneducated on this, I'll very simply define it. Minstrel shows were these sorts of really, really, really disgusting racist shows that white actors would paint their faces black and make their lips really red to depict like hyper racist stereotypes of like what black people look like, and would portray things like dancing slaves and just depict like very racist scenes to make a mockery of black people. This I got from Britannica. The paint used for the actors was this like pure carbon black. This was to portray the characters in the most racist way possible because it was like satire essentially, right? Because nobody's that black. Meanwhile, the Youthforia foundation looks like that. A foundation as in matches the skin. Foundation is not face paint. Like foundation is not like, now there is like, I talked about, what was it, sunset makeup or something like that, like last year or earlier this year. I think it was earlier this year. I can't even remember anyway, where that girl had released the colored foundations, which were supposed to be used as kind of like stage paint and stuff like that. This is not what Youthforia is advertised for. It's advertised as a natural skin tint that you can sleep in. Okay. There are no mixing mediums. Nothing's labeled as a mixing medium, and mixing mediums still have undertones in them. If they're pure tone changers, they're going to be things like blue, like the LA Girl mixing pigments. This is what a mixing pigment looks like. Put them on screen. This is what the Youthforia foundation looks like. Not the same. Okay. And then influencer, I think it's Nayadali, who to my research is Sudanese, also has a very deep complexion and tried 600. And not only is it too dark for her, and she says it's too dark for her, even though someone tried to claim that for her it was perfect, it also just kind of creates a sort of mask on her face because like the tone is off. Because it's not just the depth, it's also that there's just no other tones in it.
Applying now the 600 foundation. The foundation is just too dark up. I'm going to apply the 590 foundation. Love that it's just so flawless. It perfectly matches my skin. It matches. This foundation is a game changer.
Because Javon Ford, who is known for using his knowledge of cosmetic development and things like in the makeup industry to analyze different products and went through the ingredient list on the Youthforia foundation and showed that there were no other pigments except the pure black pigment.
Which side of my face is the black face paint or the Youthforia foundation? You can't tell.
I wanted y'all to see something first before folks start gaslighting her and other black creators in the comments. So this is one of Youthforia's lightest foundations. If you look here at the bottom of the ingredient list, you'll notice 3 different colors. Stay with me now. The CI stands for color index, and it basically represents titanium white, red, and yellow iron oxides. Pretty much the only colors you need to make a lighter shade of foundation. But then if we look at their darkest shade, the ingredient list tells a different story. Here, there's only one pigment, CI77499, which is just black iron oxide. No other colorants. This foundation literally only has pure black pigment. Here's a close-up if you missed it the first time. And before folks say, oh, maybe it's meant as a mixing pigment, but that makes no sense. Anyone who's ever taken an art class will tell you that black is a terrible pigment to mix with, because it just makes things gray and muddy. And skin tones typically have some combination of eumelanin and pheomelanin. The pheomelanin is where we get the red and yellow undertones. And this problem is so avoidable. She literally could have used NARS or Fenty foundation shades as a benchmark. This brand does not care about us.
And if you don't know about like foundations, and this is what I was talking about, things like mixing mediums as well, is typically there's sort of, I don't know if any of you have ever like watched someone mix house paint, but let's say like my mom would go in and be like, oh, I need this shade of yellow. And they would mix like a bunch of different colors into like a pure white base to create the like particular tone, right? And the bases are going to vary by the depth of the foundation and what you're going to be using it for, and a bunch of different, what the composition is and all that kind of stuff. It's obviously varies greatly between different products. So essentially the pigments are mixed, red, yellow, orange. If you're, let's say like you're kind of like me and you're like a weird, like sickly olive, it's like green, things like that, right? It's done to refine the tones and have undertones in the foundations, right? Because if I look at House Labs, right? This one is light neutral. 100 light neutral. My NARS is, oh yeah, they just named them like Vienna or whatever. And then my Fenty is shade 6, which is, to my recollection, is light, or it's light medium, neutral to cool Yeah, it's light, medium, neutral to neutral cool. Is I know, long name anyway. But it's because the long name is because it's indicating to you each of the components that are going into the different tones of these. And even then, some foundations I find don't even get the mark on the light shades that much. I am normally in the 200 range of most foundations, like medium, light, medium. And I had to do light, fair light, because no undertone to this matched me. If you look at how light this one is, I remember I did a stream where I put this foundation on, and people were like, you literally look like a ghost. With this one, we are piling on the bronzer. I actually have an e.l.f. Halo Glow that's a bit too light for me. Or no, the one that's really dark, sorry. And then I actually mix that in. So for example, I'll show you you see how this is the Fenty one. This matches me so well, you almost don't see it. And look how light that one is. That's because the undertones are off. The undertones for my depth are off. I actually am not going to be rebuying the House Labs foundation because I find the undertones to be so abysmal. And that's just me wang because it's like a little bit weird. Let alone someone releasing jet black paint and just being like, yeah, there's your foundation. Y'all whine, there's your foundation. It's ridiculous. So Javon discovered that there was just the pure black pigment, which means that there was not even an attempt made to mix something remotely similar to like an actual realistic skin tone. Now, we're going to do an experiment for you because my boyfriend is already translucent, okay? I like to sometimes joke that he's ginger without the commitment because his hair is actually platinum blonde naturally. And he's in like the 2% of like natural blondes or whatever. So think of like somebody, so he's Ukrainian and English. His family had a sunscreen cupboard because and when he would there's a picture of him from when he was a little kid. He's so fair that he was coming out of the water and the flash on the camera just reflected that he was just a beam of light coming off of his face. This is how white he is. Now, for Halloween 2 years ago, we had the most iconic couple's costume ever, which is Gerard Way and a minion. I'll put the picture right here for y'all. So he wanted to be Gerard Way, which famously had like very white kind of foundation on. So he needed to somehow be lighter than he already was, which was a struggle in and of itself. Me and the girlies went around for him at the pharmacy to try to find the lightest foundation shade possible. But we actually went to concealers because concealers often run lighter. Here, though, is my whiteout bottle that I have from my teacher pencil case. Okay, I'm gonna swatch whiteout for you because this is pure white, no undertone, no pigment. Okay, let that dry on my skin, nice and healthy. Okay, it's sticky and it's getting everywhere. Now, this is the concealer that he used to be Gerard Way. Look at how different that is. I'll actually swatch my foundation next to it as well. So I'm going to swatch the concealer. This is CoverGirl True Blend Concealer in L100 Fair Porcelain. And then I'll just take my concealer, which is the Too Faced Born This Way in Vanilla, which is also pretty light for me, but it's because I like to brighten with my concealer. I want y'all to tell me that these are the same. They're not. So you've got whiteout, and you see how the depth of these two isn't really that different. As like this is obviously darker, but this is in my light with my studio lights, and in my camera viewfinder, it's actually hard to tell that much of a difference from this distance. But look how pink this is compared to this, because people have pink, very fair people tend to have pink undertones. At least he does. And there's white, and there's mine. Mine is more of a light medium. You can see how much more warm this is, for one. How much more peachy it is. It's less pink. It leans like an orangey pink because that is how the tones change as you get through. So there's my concealer. There's the Gerard Way concealer, or honestly on my boyfriend, it's kind of just his skin color. I actually had to use a ton of like powder to make it whiter because it wasn't white enough. And there's the whiteout. So none of this sort of business, but I need some people to like think a little bit more. I really don't know what else to say in that regard because I feel like that just should have been obvious. And I'm not trying to come through like I'm like, you know, rubbing in people's faces or anything. Like, I'm just shocked. Like, I was just, but this is the reality that people feel like, you know, people who are dark skinned like face all the time. And I guess it's one of those things too where it's like almost eye-opening that it's like still this like, people are still this ignorant about these things a lot of the time. Then people switched into like what I could only compare as like active gaslighting at some point, where people started claiming that it was just a mixing medium, which I mentioned before.
I'm going to mix these two shades to show why this can't be used as a foundation mixer. I have the lighter foundation shade right here, and now I'm mixing in the Youthforia 600 shade, and I'm just going to mix these two. And now we are left with, as expected, an ashy shade. You didn't use a dark enough foundation. Okay, let's try a darker one. Here's the darker shade, and now I'm adding the 600 shade to it. And now I'm just going to mix the two again. And as expected, we have another shade that is lacking depth and richness that we would see in brown skin. To drive the point home, I'm going to mix this with some white foundation mixer, and if it has any other tone other than black, it should turn some sort of shade of brown, otherwise it's going to turn gray. And as expected, we have gray. Now let's just say this was marketed as a mixer. It wasn't. Or that you can use this shade to darken your own. You can't. As an everyday consumer, you should not be burdened with purchasing multiple foundation shades or even mixing shades and playing mixologist all day just to get a shade that works for you, especially by a brand that swears they're inclusive. Even a makeup artist would need more tones in addition to this black pigment to meet the varying tones of brown skin. I've also seen the argument of using other primary color foundation mixers to achieve a foundation color that will work in this instance, and with my prior point of not being a mixologist, I'm also no stranger to using white foundation mixer to make shades light enough, and I love having this option, but I miss out on the formulation when I have to do this because I'm not able to mix it with another foundation shade in that same formula, so I have to use this, and it just alters the formula. So a long-wearing foundation may not be as long-wearing anymore. Even though I love having the option, it's just not the same.
And then the promotion video for the foundation started circulating. They didn't have a model for it, which is weird. Didn't they? Would they not have had someone in development that could have possibly modeled it if it was tested on people? And when you look at the video, she is doing the most sheer application I've like ever seen. She's like going like that. I don't know if any of y'all have ever watched me stream doing my makeup, but I'm like that's the sound my blender makes. ASMR. You're not getting anything by going like this. You hardly even see it like touch his skin. And there's so little product that like you can't even see where it is on his face. I also want to add, because I forgot to say it in the video, even though it was in the script, that TikTok videos are notoriously extremely low quality. And even this one looks pretty bad. And on top of that, you can still kind of see how weird it looks. I still think you can kind of see like where it's kind of like a weird dull gray patch on his forehead. So this doesn't even really prove the point, but I feel like we knew that already.
It's more warm. 100 is a cool neutral. Alvin has great skin. I am applying it while holding the camera. It actually blends so easily into his skin. In all of our website photos, we always just do half a face of no makeup, half a face of Youthforia foundation. You can see the before and after, but he has great skin. This undertone was actually perfect. And then Jackson actually was so sweet. The entire time we were just talking about my journey trying to grow Youthforia. He was like, I hope your dreams come true. Same thing here. Left side, no makeup, and right side with foundation. Then we were ready to pop into this passport photo booth and get some photos taken. It was a little bit scary.
And that so that matches. That matches. Using a drop for your whole face, it matches. It's like that can make a lot of things a stretch. Okay, if I sheared this out enough, it would kind of match. And for context, this is like 6 or 7 shades lighter than I wear. So none of that. Cut that out. And also, not to mention, it's a skin tint, so it's already really light coverage to begin with. So even if let's say I sheared out like the House Labs, this would shear out way differently than something like my Fenty skin tint. The Fenty skin tint is kind of more like a foundation, but let's say like the Glossier skin tint. Those two things will shear out very differently. And now people are kind of being cool and bringing forth their like art experience. A lot of painters and stuff like that are coming out and showing people like ways to mix primary colors and how deep skin looks on properly mixing the undertones and how you can mix these sort of tones without using black at all. more so using things like very rich dark blues.
So let's start off simple with what is melanin. Melanin is what gives our eyes, hair, skin, color. Everybody has it to different degrees. When you see characteristics like my dark eyes or my dark hair, it is associated with having more melanin as opposed to somebody with, say, blonde hair and blue eyes. There's many types of melanin found in humans, but specifically for our eyes, hair, and skin color, it is determined by the presence of eumelanin and pheomelanin. Eumelanin is responsible for dark colors like my eye color and my hair color. The pinkness of my lips, that's due to pheomelanin. So even though from far my irises and my hair color may look pure black, it isn't. And if you have black hair like me, you know exactly what I mean when I say standing in direct sunlight actually shows the true hue of the color. Our skin color works in the same way in that paler people have less eumelanin in their skin, so therefore they have less pigment. When most people think of black things like black paint or black objects, we often think of the absence of color, but this is not at all how skin, hair, and eye pigment works. Like a person who has a very deep dark complexion is not because they lack pigment, it's because they have an abundance of it. Purely jet black people like this foundation do not exist in real life. When strong light sources like the sun hit deep complexions, they still reflect brown orange hues. That's also why when artists paint, we typically don't like mixing with black straight from the tube for our palette because it muddies a color very quickly. And just because something looks black to our eyes doesn't mean that it is black. Like jet black. Black is also an extremely strong pigment, which means it lowers the chroma of your color mixes too rapidly, and therefore you end up with these lifeless colors that are muddy. And I'm saying all this to show you exactly why this color still makes absolutely zero sense as a real foundation shade. This is Youthforia's darkest shade of foundation. It's not listed on their website as being anything other than a foundation, not a mixing pigment, not a contour, a foundation, a jet black foundation. After people test out their initial foundation release, they asked them to extend the shade range, and this is what Youthforia came back with, claiming that it is a neutral undertone. Undertones in foundation implies that there's a stronger underlying pigment apart from the orange base. Orange being the hue family that normal human skin tones range in. I swatched 3 of the darkest foundation shades from 3 different brands. All have been shown to work on people with deeper complexions. And on my pinky finger, I swatched Youthforia's darkest shade. See how the first 3 actually have an undertone? What is this? Adding pure white does lower the overall chroma of the color, but you'll get the gist. Even after adding white pigment and lowering the chroma that much, these 3 shades still have some sort of undertone. This one, absolutely not. That's gray. This shade does not have a workable undertone because it did not have a base shade at all. That's because this foundation only contains one pigment, black oxide. My favorite cosmetic chemist, Javon Ford, actually speaks more about this on his page. I highly suggest you check out his videos. Like, you cannot tell me that foundation shade is meant to be wearable on its own, because it's not.
And in the way that white people are not flat paper white, very, very dark skinned people, deep dark skin, are not jet black. But Youthforia has had a couple of other sort of shady practices. And with that, we'll go into part 3. Part 3, other shady practices. So I was contacted from someone via my Twitter DMs where they showed me these emails where it appears that hypothetically, allegedly in Minecraft, perhaps to imply maybe, that there was a desired exchange for PR and positive reviews. For legal reasons and other reasons perchance, I am not saying that they are demanding specifically positive reviews or that this is an inherently illegal or immoral practice. The only thing redacted from the email is any sort of personal information to the person contacting the person who was contacted. These are very real emails, but I'm also keeping anonymity for the person who sent them to me. If you refuse to believe me, that is up to you. I'm going to read them here for you now. Person here, I'm super excited to share that you've been selected to receive Youthforia's most innovative product, and my personal fave product, our Night Off Face Wash. I love your honest feedback, and I'd so appreciate if you could leave a review on our Night Off Face Wash page on Ulta. I created this because I realized that most face washes aren't that great at removing makeup, and I needed something that could remove makeup but still be gentle enough for my skin. What's unique is that it's made from real green tea leaves. You can think of it like tea. The longer it brews, the darker the color gets as more antioxidants get released, as you can see here. If you are interested in trying our newest face wash, please fill out this form so you can confirm your mailing address. After you've received our face wash, once you show us you've left a review, as a token of our appreciation, we'll give you $20 credit for anything you purchase on Youthforia.co. And you'll be entered into a contest to receive $300 credit. The second email says, thank you so much for participating in our most recent review program. Just wanted to send a quick reminder to leave your review on Ulta.com and or our website, Youthforia, whatever, to receive your $20 credit. If you have already sent in emails, sent in a screenshot to us, please disregard this email. After sharing your review with us, you'll also be entered into a contest to receive a $300 credit with Youthforia. You'll choose a winner for this contest on March. Actually, I don't know how Americans do that. If that's November or March, I have no idea. I think that's March 10th, 2023, I think. French people do it the other way. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You should receive the product by now, but please respond directly to this email. If you haven't, it will be taken care of ASAP. Thank you so much for supporting the brand. Now, it doesn't say positive review at all. That's what I'm saying earlier. I will say, though, a little bit interesting that they also want the screenshot of the review itself, which on one hand could be proof of obtaining the product and trying the product, but also I feel like this This is just my thoughts and opinions based on context provided to me from these emails. I feel like if you were allowed to leave any type of review you want, sending it back directly to the brand, I feel like would sway perhaps more negative reviews. Especially when they're kind of promising a contest, and I feel like perhaps maybe we don't know how random it is. And perhaps maybe hypothetically, allegedly, the negative reviews maybe wouldn't be there. I don't know. I am just hypothesizing based on the context provided. Now, I could be wrong because I'm not freedom-pilled and American. That I'm not bald eagle, baseball, hot dog, George Washington, post-Reaganism, capitalism, freedom-pilled. I always just add on to as many things I could possibly think of when I just talk about American people. Anyway, I don't know if this is something that happens normally, because this was specifically through Ulta. For those of you who do not know, unfortunately, us Canadians are stuck with Galen Weston, our monopoly overlords, Shoppers Drug Mart, or Sephora. Those are like the makeup stores that we have, and like Walmart, you know, but that's it. We don't have Target, we don't have CVS, we don't have Ulta, we don't have Kohl's, we don't have a lot of those types of things. I can't check things like Ulta, I can't find these interactions myself because these things have never been available to me in the first place because I'm not from the United States. There was also an exchange for credit given to those who left reviews. And but monetary credit, like $20 credit on the website or whatever, and there was a contest to win $300 that involved leaving reviews. It seems that Youthforia was trying to build, like, an audience that will love them no matter the criticism. They can just keep getting good reviews to flush out any of the other ones. Because there was another creator on TikTok named Annika and talked about how she was contacted to review the foundation before Gloria's video went live. And I'm going to put that TikTok in now.
And I very well did tell them to take me up off that list. They hit me up a few days before Gloria's video went live, right? And this is how I be telling y'all, these brands is a lot slicker than you would think. They will know that they're in the hot seat with a specific community, a specific demographic, a specific whatever, and they will hit up influencers from that community so that we could change the overall feelings in the community about that brand. Mind you, I ain't know nothing about Youthforia, and also adding to the hate. That's a trash brand name. I'll say it. I don't care. Because y'all put out that black shade. Then you gonna hit up my black self talking about oh my God, we wanna send you some goodies. I don't want goodies from y'all, bro. That's weird. A lot of y'all are playing so absolutely dumb, and it is so scary to see. For the longest time in the United States, when slavery was still around, and follow me because this leads to makeup, the common understanding was that black people were not, that's my dog, black people were not human beings in the same way that white people were. And a lot of y'all getting on here talking about I don't know, I've seen black people who are really black, who are dark like that. I don't know why you guys are mad. Y'all are so dumb. You don't even realize that black people are human beings and that there is not one person on this earth that is black, that is just the color black. And you don't even understand that the other racial equivalent is if somebody put out a white foundation, no undertones, no nothing, just straight up white, bro. What are you talking about? Or a foundation for Asian people and it's literally just the color yellow. Like, that is so dumb, it's so racist, and it's so disgusting, bro. And you know it was malicious because how you jump 590 to 600 and 590 is not even that dark, 600 is black? What? And I don't even like to jump on hate trains, but this deserves hate.
And this was supposed to have someone who is also a dark-skinned black woman, mind you, not quite as deep as Gloria, review the foundation and give it a good review. Allegedly, hypothetically, maybe that's my interpretation. A lot of this, from the dishonest swatches from the original $4.95 to the no attempt at even creating an undertone 600 to the weird shade jumps in the high 500s anyways, which Gloria also points out in other videos. I'll put her TikTok down below. I'll put her TikTok, Annika's TikTok, anybody, all my sources down below, as I mentioned. Plus the reviews. It sounds like we have a very shady company on our hands. And with that, I'm going to let me know your thoughts. Because these revelations have shocked me, to be honest with you. They just have no respect for the consumer. And they're like a new Tarte, but worse. Because at least Tarte was like, we're just going to just burn that foundation in its totality and just start over. To conclude, we went through the history of Youthforia's foundation range and other similar controversies in the past. Then went through the controversy around the shade expansion and how people really lack common sense when it comes to deep dark complexions and are just willing to side with brands for whatever reason. We talked about this kind of concept as well in my video with Elle on Leo Skeppy as well. This like weird brand loyalty that they don't care about you if you breathe or if you end up in an abyss. But for some reason, people have this incessant need to defend consumer goods. And we went through some other hypothetically alleged interpreted imagination practices, maybe, to end the video off. And links, sources, ways to support the channel all down below, including email to suggest longer form content. I want to once again thank my current members and patrons for supporting the channel. Let me know what you think about all this. This is one of those times where I really want to hear what y'all are thinking. And I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye!
You smell burnt toast? Chances are you're having a stroke. A stroke of what that is? It's fucking toast!